Gang. We got a good one for you today. This is one of my best friends in the whole world. Have been around forever and ever. And we're going to talk to him in just a second here. But before we get started here, we want to let everybody know we're going to be at the Bass Pro Shops next Sunday at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time at the Bass Pro Shops in Irvine, California. And we're going to be there doing a seminar with Justin Bottrell and Pablo Fernandez. We're going to be there talking about lobster fishing and talking about what you can expect to catch this fall. And the other thing is Kelly Girl's going to join us. She never comes to the seminars, but she knew she had to come because of the lobster, and she's got the largest lobster ever caught in California. So we are looking forward to being there for you guys next Sunday at 12 o'clock at the Bass Pro Shops in Irvine, California. And then if you guys show up wearing our gear, you get free stuff. And Promar's going to step up to the plate. Dana Wharf Sportfishing stepping up to the plate. And Okuma stepping up to the plate to give away a ton of free stuff. So we're going to have lots of free stuff. If you show up and you're wearing our gear, you're going to get it. And if your children show up, they're going to get free stuff just for being there. And that's my commitment to the children. And that's our future. So we got to make sure we take care of the kids when we go fishing. And then today we got our buddy, our pal, Greg Kruse. We've been waiting for this one for a very, very long time. Greg, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks. I'm honored, Dave.
Oh, well, thank you. That is pretty spectacular to feel honored, but I didn't do anything special. I just show up every day. But you, on the other hand, you were very instrumental in my beginnings, in the very beginning of my career. And also, I want to say one thing real quick. Today is sponsored by McCarty Yacht Sales. Mansur Marine and McCarty Yacht Sales combined to put the best possible scenario of selling your boat or working on your boat to make it so that you can sell it. So Mansur Marine and McCarty Yacht Sales are the sponsors of our show on Fridays. Every single Friday they are there for us. So thank you very much. And we'll show you a little video a little bit later. But hey, let's get started here. Let's go back to the very beginning. Where did you come from? Where did you come from? Why did you show up at Dana Wharf Sport Fishing back in the freaking beginning of it all?
Well, Dave, I was very fortunate growing up. I got to grow up in Dana Point, California, and wow, what a place! When I was there, they were just the harbor was just coming into fruition. It wasn't built yet. Coast Highway was one lane, and we skateboard down to the other end of the harbor. We'd fish off the pier. And I had a really good fishing buddy. I got to throw his name out, Steve Lesarge. Great fisherman. That's where we spent our days, down at the harbor. And then then Dana Wharf came into being. I just fell in love with the place. I mean, I knew right then I wanted to be a captain of a sport fishing boat, and it wasn't going to come easy. We started off in Dana Wharf, being a pinhead. That's what they called us. You'd try to scrub the boats in the morning, right afternoon when they came in. That was a big deal if you were able to scrub a boat back then. And that's where I met you and your little brother. And the whole place, Dana Wharf, wow. That was the place I wanted to be when I didn't have to be at home. I wanted to be at the wharf.
Yeah, exactly. I felt the same way that you felt back then. Look at that picture. You remember that?
Yeah.
When they built the harbor.
Yeah, I can remember, Dave, I was in 6th grade at Richard Henry Dana Elementary School, and we were lucky enough to be able to go down there during class time, and we helped save some of the marine animals that were in the harbor, and we have buckets of abalone and shrimps and chitin's, anything we could salvage and save, we would put in these buckets full of water and give them to these marine biologists, and they would take them to the other side of where the base of the breakwater was being built. They'd make sure that they were, had a second life to live when they were dredging the harbor. That was those were really good times back then.
And then when did you start working on the boats as a pinhead?
That was probably, I was probably in my early teens, and I had a couple friends that had worked down there, and a family member that worked down there, and some neighbors of ours would go on the half-day boats out of Dana Point. I never did back then. I didn't go out on the boats. I was too into something, surf, and trying to go to the beach and learn how to surf and that kind of stuff. But I remember after my first full summer of kind of hanging down at the wharf, I kind of gave up the surfboard and got a fishing pole. And every day we could, we just head down to the harbor, hang around the wharf, waiting for the boats to come in, fishing off the docks, anytime we could before we got chased off. And if we were lucky enough, we'd get a little ride out to the bait receiver and you'd fish for barracuda with live bait. We'd scrounge out there. There was an older gentleman, Dave, who ran the bait barge. I don't know if you remember.
Goose.
Yes. What a guy.
Oh my God.
He was a stick. I remember he was a stickler when it came to, when I started working on the boats, we'd head out to the bait receiver, and old Goose, he was a stickler when it came to giving us bait. We'd say, "Come on, give us a little more." And I thought he was a crotchety old man, but he was a good guy. Good guy.
He's probably younger than us right now.
But yeah, then after you put in your time there. You had to put in your time, and I was able to become a deckhand. Wow, I knew I was on my way to becoming a captain then. And that's what I did, Dave. Every chance I got, I'd ride the half-day boat, three-quarter-day boat. And my favorite boat at Dana Wharf was the Twilight boat. It left at 5 p.m., got back around 10:30, and I think you know the spot. I don't want to give it out because I don't want to give any secret spots out on this. I'm just kidding. Do you remember a little spot called Christmas Tree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The best twilight fishing of my life was down there. We had nice sized barracuda, giant calico bass. I was in seventh heaven. So the twilight boats were my favorite boats to run down there. I don't know what were yours?
Oh, I think working on the Twilight boat was the highlight of my career back in those days. Running the Twilight boat, working on the Twilight boat. It was such a good time to be down in the harbor and be alive. The Bass Pro Shops is going to be on Sunday, the 14th, but at 12 o'clock. I'm just answering a guy's question up here on the screen. But I think the Twilight fishing back in the day was it. It was like so good. And there was many days where we caught limits of calico bass and limits of barracuda on a 4-hour trip. That's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah. And after you got in from the Twilight trip, if you were one of the deckhands, you'd scrub the boat, lift up those wooden slats on the reel fund or whatever boat you were on.
Yeah, we'll lift up the wooden slats on the reel fund. That's right, because it stood water. The deck was water or sea level or whatever, right at the level of the water. So the water would come in and come out of the boat. Yeah, there it is, right there.
Yeah, the old reel fund. And then after everything was cleaned up on the boats, then we'd sleep on them. We'd sleep on them during the night and rummage around the harbor with our fishing poles and I guess you could say we were a little vagrants at times, but those, I mean, there's a nice picture of the real fun. I mean, nice halibut too. I mean, what a time to be there. I mean, gosh, it was the best times of my life down there. When you're a kid, you know, I knew then I really wanted to be a captain. Really, just anything I could do around the boats. I tried. I tried to learn everything I could. Usually, when you're that young and you're on the boats, you became the chummer and you baited people's hooks. That was all part of it. What time? When did you start working on the boats, Dave?
Oh, I don't know, probably 75, 74, 76. But I really wasn't working on the boat. I was more like getting in the way. I was the owner's kid. I was the snot-nosed little brat. I look back at those days and I think, man, I thought I was there helping, but I was really just in the way. And I felt for you guys, all of you guys, you, Steve Lesarge, all the deckhands and all the captains back then, because they would have to start their day by picking me up in the morning. That would be their start of their day. And I think about it today and it's like, damn, how screwed up was that you had to pick up the snot-nosed brat, the owner's son, before you started your day of work. It was just so wrong and so backwards. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's Devo's brother. It's Greg Kruse. Absolutely. But the thing that you guys had to start off your day picking me up is so crazy, just so funny. I mean, I would love to know what went through your mind. I talked to Bob Lorman. I talked to Danny Clutie. Those guys are like your heroes. Those guys were like my heroes. And all you wanted to do was, those were the guys that came before us. You just wanted to do what they did, right?
Exactly, Dave. I idolized those captains.
Joe Reeves, Jay Elder, all those guys. Those guys were our mentors.
Yeah, I wanted to be just like them. I mean, those dark sunglasses, wearing their Cat Diesel or their Detroit Diesel Allison cap, ball cap.
And
I idolize them big time. If someone's asking me right now, what's one of the funniest things I remember happening while running sport boats? Wow. I will get back to you, Ryan, on that. I have to think about that one. But thank you. A lot of funny things.
The thing that really got to me back in the day was how you guys, and I say you guys because I looked up to you guys, but how you guys were just like, it seemed like you were a step ahead of everybody else back then as far as catching fish. I mean, you put it all together today and it's doesn't look that hard, but back in those days, you didn't have the GPS, you didn't have the Loran, you didn't have any of that. You guys just went with landmarks and time out of the harbor and all that stuff. How did you guys do that?
You paid attention to the captains. Any chance I got, Dave, I would I'd be up in the wheelhouse when they were looking for spots or circling. I watched what they did. They would line up landmarks. I was pretty young in that stage of my career, so I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, and I probably should have. But they would line up landmarks or do the times, or they knew where the kelp beds were, of course. Then they start their chum circle or anchor up by kelp bed, start throwing bait. I didn't in my time on the sport boat, Steve, down at Dana Point. I didn't pay a lot of attention when I should have, which I don't feel real bad about now. But yeah, those guys, they were in a different league than us, and back to those people we worked with, the deckhands. When I was there, I looked up to a lot of those deckhands because to me it was like you started on a half-day boat, but your eyes were set on an overnight boat at San Clemente Island. You wanted to be on the Seahorse or the Patrician or one of those boats that were down there at the time. And there was a big line of people though that also wanted those gigs. So, I mean, if somebody was sick, I think that's one of the reasons that I really hung around the wharf so much. And of course, I was down there an hour before the boat was going to leave at nighttime to Clemente Island. Even if I wasn't going to make it, maybe one of the deckhands wasn't, and they'd say, "Hey, Pinhead, come on, let's go." And don't bring the fishing pole or stash the pole because you won't be using it. I'm like, oh man, come on, cut me some slack. So yeah, you wanted to be that deckhand on those boats. But I mean, I was happy being the half day kid, just to get my foot in the door. Yeah.
Something that we talk about a lot with the old timers on here and is we didn't care how much you got paid. We didn't care. It didn't even matter, right? It didn't even matter. It was just, can I work on the boat? If you were a deckhand, you were like it. You were it.
Yeah, and you wanted to do a really nice job cleaning that boat. You wanted to act like you were putting everything you had into it because some of the captains would take notice of that, and if you did, you wanted to let them know I want to be with you, and you're exactly right. Anything you could do just to get on the boats. When there was work to be done in the engine room, you were the first one to say, "I'm in. Let's go. Let's get this done." Yeah. I can remember helping captains down there with their quarterly inspections. I thought that was a huge, huge thing. Wow, the Coast Guard is going to come down and inspect the boat. And I helped spray paint, green paint on the Detroit diesels. Of course, we didn't wear masks or anything back then. Anything we could do. Cuprinol inside some of the frames on the boats where the moisture was getting into the wood. So yeah, working with all the captains, doing that.
So we're gonna break off this and go into when you were running boats in just a minute. But first, let's just show this video of Manser Marine and McCarty Yacht Sales and how you can get a hold of them, and then we'll get back into this real quick.
Hey guys, Captain Todd here with McCarty Yacht Group, Manser Marine, proud sponsor of Your Saltwater Guide. I'm here with my good buddy John McCarty.
Hey guys, how you doing?
The broker for McCarty Yacht Group. And guys, I just want to tell you it's springtime. It's time to start buying and selling. If you're looking to buy a boat right now or looking to sell a boat, make sure you give us a call at McCarty Yacht Group. Guys, you know how to get a hold of me, 949-547-7748. We're sitting on the Pescatory right now. This is like office number 1, 2, or 3. I can't remember where we're either in the office, at home, on a boat, but this is one of the places we do business, guys. But if you're looking for somebody to well represent you, we are a different breed of cat, guys. We work on boats for a living. We're going to make sure to sell your boat for the top price, or if you're looking to buy a boat, we're going to make sure you get something that's not a horrible project for you. So anyway, guys, give us a call. We look forward to hearing from you.
So you remember that young man, don't you?
Dave, I do not. I am sorry.
Todd Manser,
Oh my
John
gosh.
Manser's son.
Yeah. Wow. I definitely remember the great white shark that they brought in Dana Wharf. And these stations from LA came down. That was pretty wild.
His brother Larry caught that sucker.
They had the fish market there at the wharf.
Yep, still got it.
Matt, you're asking me about. It must be hard to find fishing and find landmarks in the fog. It is.
Yeah,
you're not going to.
it's impossible.
Yeah. Luckily, in my career started before Loran C. So they had Loran A, but that was really, really hard to to figure out. Lorraine was like squiggly lines, but it was a nice tool to have when you're offshore 40 to 120 miles.
So let's talk about, you left Dana Wharf Sport Fishing back when you were 19 years old, right? And went up to Avila Bay.
You bet. When I was at Dana Wharf, there was a captain there, Blaine Hughes. He ran the Reel Fund. I worked for him. He migrated north to Morro Bay, and so did one of the deckhands, a really good deckhand down there that worked on the Clemente, Lee Burris, migrated up there also. And we heard stories about giant rock cod that which you didn't see at Dana Wharf. In the wintertime at Dana Wharf, I saw some of the rock cod they caught they didn't even compare to what was up there. So of course, I had a car, I had money for gas, boom. We had to go on a road trip to Morro Bay. And after 2 or 3 road trips, I ended up living with Lee Burris in Morro Bay. So that was one of my first steps into becoming a captain. So we moved to Morro Bay, and I got a job out of Virgin Sport Fishing in Morro Bay with Blaine. A few trips, we did that. It was all rock cod fishing. And I would work in San Simeon by Hearst Castle up there. In the summertime, they moored a few boats up there. And that was good. I learned a lot. It was a different fishing, different tackle, different kind of everything up there. So from Morro Bay, one of my good friends of mine, Lee Burris, ended up working down at a small little landing out of Avila Beach, which became Port San Luis Sport Fishing. And I eventually hooked up down there and got a job on a few boats. I'll start with the Diablo, Cheyenne, and there was a boat there called the Marauder. And the Marauder to me was like the Hope Diamond. That was the boat I wanted to run one day. So sport fishing there was mostly rock cod fishing, Dave. It was shallower rock cod fishing at times, down at Point Sal, up to Point Bouchon. There wasn't like, you weren't fishing 1,000 feet of water, or 500, or even 300 was probably the max, and that was off Point Burisma. And so that's where this whole thing started with me, and really becoming the captain was right there at Port San Luis, Dave.
I remember I used to come up there and go fishing with you, bro. It was like it was the shit. Sorry for my French, but it was for us in Dana Point, get up there and go catch rockfish. We were fishing in 100 feet of water or 90 feet of water and catching rockfish just wide open. I remember it was so cool. It was really cool.
You were fishing places that were never, it wasn't like going to a kelp bed on San Mateo or rocks that have been fished hammered on every day. I mean, these were places where you drop down these funky 3-hook rock cod canyons that would scare a fish away, and these fish would just boom attack it. It was crazy.
And you guys also had another fish up there that we had down here, and it was pretty incredible in the summertime, but it would bite. It would be like follow-up of the summertime up there. You would go up there in October, maybe the middle of September, October, and catch albacore, right?
Albacore, you bet, Dave. I'm going to bring us back just a little bit. I want to let everyone know how I acquired my captain's license. If that's cool with you, Dave?
Yeah, that's great.
So I was a deckhand at Port San Luis Sport Fishing for a few years. It was, I'm going to say, let's go with very late 80s. Yeah. And because that's when it was. So I worked on the boats there as a deckhand, and we had, most of we had a lot of regulars that would come out on the boats. And one of my regulars was a gentleman named Jack Madison. Rest in peace, Jack. Became a really dear friend. And while I was a deckhand there, when we pulled up to the dock in the morning and I saw Jack Madison on the dock, I knew we were going to have, no matter how the fishing was, we were going to have an awesome day. So, long story short, Jack, unoho, one eye, he had just one eye. One day he brought me aside and said, "Greg, why aren't you a captain?" I was 19 years old then, 20 maybe. And Jack goes, I go, "Jack, I would like to get my license. I'm trying to save a few bucks for it." And so he asked me how much it was. I said, "It's at least $400 to go to this guy named Captain Swede in Newport Beach on Balboa Island." Captain Swede. A friend of mine had gone to him and got his license. So next time I saw Mr. Madison, Jack, he handed me a check for $400 and said, "Go. When I see you next, I want you to have your license." Adios. There I was. So my dad let me stay with him in Dana Point at the house, and went to school. After my second attempt, sure, that was it. I got my license. Man, what a day! I had this piece of paper in my hand that was worth more than $1 million to me. So there I was in San Pedro, California. I think I hitchhiked home. No, I couldn't have then. I'm telling a fish story. Got on the Amtrak and came back to San Luis Obispo, and there was a captain there who didn't want to be running one of the boats, the Diablo. His name was Don Harris. He was a commercial fisherman on the side, and salmon season was coming up in Morro Bay. And he said, "Greg, I'm out of here, and you got 1 or 2 days." And so I did get my license. Ended up running the Diablo, first command. I thought I was stink on what. So that's how I acquired my captain's license, Dave.
That is a phenomenal story. Keep going.
So then my career started at Port San Luis. And there was the 3 boats there that I mentioned earlier, Diablo, Cheyenne. And my eyes were set on the Marauder. It was a Seaway hull, 60 by 20 foot, made in Long Beach, California. It was semi-custom built for the owner's son, John Sato. And really low rails. And it was an albacore killer. It was. Perfect name for it, Marauder. They were going to call it Ichiban. But that name came. And that's where I started off my captain's career there, Port San Luis. And Dave, you were talking about the albacore. And that was the best time of the year. That was around San Diego started, normally their season started around July. July 4th was usually the time where, okay, they're going to catch albacore down there, and the first ones would come in. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes the albacore would bypass them some summers, and they end up north. And so that when June or July came around, down in Morro Bay or Avila, Port San Luis, you could tell what was going on because some of the highline commercial boats would be gone, and the Millie G and a few others. And these are boats that can hold megatons. And you get bits and pieces of info, and it's time to go on an exploratory trip. So we gather up good buddies, good sticks, good fishing guys, and we just head out there. And that was like being in the promised land. You were out there 50 to 100 miles looking for them so you could start the season. And we had some awesome trips. Just there's nothing like getting ready for albacore season. I mean, just you got blood flowing in you. That was the cat's meow.
And
You came up for a couple trips, didn't you, Dave?
well, yeah, but you got to start running the Marauder. How old were you when you started running the Marauder?
Oh yeah, wow. Excuse me, because when I'm thinking back about these fishing days, I just get so excited, Dave. It's just
Right. I understand.
so I remember being I went through the Diablo and the Cheyenne. I ran them all the time.
Oh yeah.
And then finally, the owner's son, John. Excellent. What a fisherman. Just awesome. His crew was mostly his family members and just really, really good hot sticks. And John's time came, and I was offered the Marauder probably around just 1980. And God, once I got on the Marauder, once I got that boat, I didn't need anything else in my world. That was it. I mean, nothing else mattered to me. I slept on that boat. I would take the little skiff and lower it off the pier, and even on my days off, and go out there and just walk around and see if there's anything I could do to make it more beautiful than it was. I was incensed with the thing. So, and we lived up to our bill there. We worked with the Morro Bay boats in the summertime, and if San Diego was having a really tough year, some of their boats would make their way up, and I was fortunate enough to be able to meet some really good captains from San Diego and tour their boats and chill with those guys. And I'll throw out a few of them for you. There was the Fiesta with Greg Trumpus. What a great fisherman. That guy. One of the best guys with a jig stick I've ever seen. And there was Mr. John Pratt, the Finalisto 100 was one of the boats. The Vagabond from San Diego. And a few others. So it was kind of cool because at night they would be leaving Morro Bay, we'd be leaving Avila, and within an hour after our departures, we'd chat on the radio on the VHF for a bit, and we talk about where we were going. But I had to hold on my cards because I still wanted to give them info, but I learned to kind of hold a few cards with these guys and maybe not give them the straight dope all the time. But that was a game that everybody played. You know that too, Dave.
Oh, yeah. So as you were moving forward in this albacore fishing thing, something really, really, I don't know how else to say it, something really tragic happened. But thank God you were there, right? You were there. You were the guy. You were the only guy on the spot. This is our bait boat and Dana Point's captain, gang. He was the captain of the boat, the Finalisto 100, when it went down. John Pratt. Those of you that know the man know he's a phenomenal captain. But kind of run over what happened, Greg.
Wow.
All right.
Let's go.
Jay Elder's asking what Sally Corrine.
Yes, she sure did. Sally Cran. She was a marine biologist. Hey, Captain Elder. Sally Cran was a marine biologist that worked when we were in Avila Beach. Diablo Canyon nuclear power station was being built, and so.
Oh, Victor too. Jay saying.
And so Sally Cran was one of the biologists. They would come out on our boats and just tag along and take samples. We would fish a few spots by Diablo Canyon just for them, and it was all part of a survey they were doing for how fishing would affect the outflow from the nuclear generators. Or way past my mindset. So yes, I was there. Oh yes, and Captain Elder's mentioning the commercial rock fishing we did with 50 hook anias and straight reels. Real quick, let me talk to Mr. Elder on that. When I ran the Diablo in Port San Luis, one of the benefits was in the wintertime, when passenger counts were slow for us, people weren't going fishing, we would take our boats, some of us, a select few would take the boats, ice them up, and we'd make these 50-hook rockcod ganyons with these window sash weights for lead, and we'd head down to Point Arguello and beyond, wherever, and we commercial fish rockcod. And maybe on another show, Dave, I've got great pictures of 50-hook ganyons floating on top of the surface with 50 reds and cowgods, and those were some of the perks of being down there. So anyway, back to the Finalisto 100. Wow, what a story. This happened October 22nd and 3rd, 1982. The Finalisto 100 was leaving Morro Bay, California, probably around midnight, as were we on the Marauder down in Port San Luis. Everything was a normal night. Left the harbor, pitch black, headed out. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, my second captain, Captain John Dornellis, one of the best, if not, he was my best second captain I ever had. I was snoozing away in the bunk. The goal of the second captain, or the position of the second captain back then, was he'd take the boat out and take the boat in. I'd fish it during the day for the albacore. And so anyway, I got rousted in my bunk by John. Greg, Pratt's calling you. He's on channel 16, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I woke up and it was pandemonium on the VHF radios in the wheelhouse. And channel 16, Mayday, 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 Finalisto 100. And Greg, Mayday, Greg. And so, John, it's Greg. Chill, I'm here, John. Yes. What I wanted to do was just get his position right away. I knew he was in trouble. Engine fire, worst thing you could ever have if you're out there. It's an engine fire. Sinking, bad. Engine fire, very bad. So after a couple minutes on the radio trying to find out where he was, we had a player scanner. I didn't see him. He was probably 15 miles away from me. We had a player scanner VHF. Some of you might know it. It was an old style. It had a compass on it, a compass display on it. And it was a really cool radio. If someone talked on the VHF, you got a compass bearing too. So between that and his giving us his Latin long lines, we had a pretty good idea where he was. And so throttled down, boom, watching the pyrometer on my boat to make sure I didn't seize the valves. We were balls out. And probably 35 minutes later, we saw the glow. It was eerie. Saw this glow. Weather conditions weren't bad. Light breeze. It was kind of that sea mist, that haze you get where the fog might want to come, but it didn't, which was great. So here we are, like getting closer and closer. We could see the Finalisto, just a skeleton ablaze. And my adrenaline was pumping. Everyone was. John Dornellis, our second captain, did an excellent job. He rousted the crew and the passengers. We had like 30 passengers ourselves. Rousted them out of the bunk room, got all the blankets ready. Let my cook know that he was going to be doing double duty in the galley. And so we pulled up on scene. This is when it all started. Had the spotlight going. And I was looking for anything I could. Had the spotlight going. I can remember conditions were pretty favorable, 4 to 6 foot swells, maybe. Light, minimal chop. There was squid in the water. I'll never forget that. I thought, oh, squid, sharks, great, blue sharks probably. But so here we came upon the scene. There was I saw the first cluster of people. They were like in groups of 3 and 4. There were some singles. There was a life raft. You could see the reflective tape. on them. Luckily, the reflective tape really helped. Nowadays, they make you put tons of it on the life jackets. But so we strapped our life rafts that we had on our boat. We strapped them over the rails, and luckily the Marauder had low rails. We strapped them on the outside, and there was probably 8 people I knew that were passengers. I knew them personally, and so they helped in the rescue and with my deckhands. So we pulled up and started grabbing people out of the water. It was insane what I saw. Just an area, 100 yards with just scattered people, and the boats 500 yards away, just burning away. You could smell the thing. So I'll tell you this more about this later, but the first person we picked up out of the water was Jack Madison, the guy that sent me to Captain's School. Crazy. Yeah. One-eyed Jack. And I didn't even know it at the time because I'm an adrenaline junkie right then and there. But long story short, but I'll make it longer anyway. We got everybody on the boat. We thought I talked with John Pratt, the captain, and I said, John, you got your passenger list, right? Yes, I got it. I go, right on, dude. So we went over the passenger list, and I almost started breaking down and crying. I mean, we had every person on that boat, on our boat. And what a feeling that was. Everyone. I double checked. I triple checked. They were there. I go, I can't believe we got them all. And I was so self-conscious that I circled around a few times. I didn't want to circle around the Finalisto. I circled around the area because I knew the drift line. I had a feeling I didn't want to bring these people closer to that boat. You know, I was thinking of their safety. But yeah, we left. And so during all this commotion, the Coast Guard had been, they did a silencia, which meant nobody else other than the Marauder could talk on channel 16. So we could have good comms, good communications. And so once we had all the people on board, then we have to decide, okay, we had to do a health check, anyone, do you feel okay? Blah, 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 blah. Going through all the passengers. And I asked if anybody on our vessel or even their vessel, if anyone had any kind of medical experience, because I didn't know what to expect. And so lo and behold, the gentleman started having heart issues. And so I'm like, okay. So he got his chest pounded on a little bit. And he was still alive. And talked to our good buddies at the United States Coast Guard, and they sent out a helo for him. And in the meantime, they had coordinated with a Coast Guard icebreaker, which is up here in Seattle right now. That's where I am right now, Seattle, Washington. They coordinated with a Coast Guard icebreaker to rendezvous with us. It was on its way down to South Antarctica to do their studies down there. And so next thing I know, the Coast Guard launched a motorboat in the water off the icebreaker, and a corpsman came over to our vessel, over to the Marauder with extra blankets and some food stores for us. And so we had the Coast Guard guy, corpsman on our boat, and he checked all the passengers out and said, good to go. And so the only problem then was stability, because I had 33 passengers on at least 30 on mine, and the 44 total off the Finalisto. So the Coast Guard did a few calculations, and they decided with the weather conditions that we could do it. We could escort them. We could take them all back to Avila Beach. And so the Coast Guard icebreaker, I want to say Polar Star. There's Polar Sea, Polar Star. They escorted us within 7 miles off the beach in Avila, and they hooked out of there. I said thank you, and then we were met. We did do the Coast Guard helo also. That was kind of cool. Having the basket drop, and they warned us about the static and all that. Some stuff you're supposed to learn on your captain's license, but I don't think I did. I think I marked C on a lot of them. And then we were met at the dock by who wasn't there, at the dock. Oh my gosh. The news crews, buses, fire engines, onlookers. So that was pretty, I was pretty emotional about it. Who wouldn't be though? And someone said, "You guys deserve a medal." Yeah. So, I've got enough awards and plaques, but we did get a special one from the government and the Coast Guard. It was the highest one you can get, the Public Service Award from the United States Coast Guard, and decorated with medals. I got a good little story about that. We were the Coast Guard Admiral west of the Mississippi. After this incident happened, he flew out with his attaché and came to Morro Bay, and we had brunch together. And so the Coast Guard Admiral pinned the medals on myself and my crew, that was for us when we were 20, 21 years old, 23. It was a big deal. Yeah. And then after I moved to Seattle, Dave, my wife and me joined a yacht club in Seattle. And I found out one of the members of the yacht club here in Seattle was the same admiral who pinned the medal on my chest in Morro Bay. I mean, small world. Wow. So that was kind of cool. So we reconnected, and I could probably talk about that Finalisto rescue for a long time. Little bits and pieces will come back more, but that's a pretty accurate story. Matter of fact, right now I'm in the process of gathering information because I would like to write rescuers' perspective on the rescue. What I did, and I don't think it's been done like that, and so it's on my bucket list coming up.
Yeah, if people can think about this, at that time in that ocean, there was one hope and one hope only. You guys. That was the only hope those people had. You guys anybody else, it would have taken hours for them to get there. You were on the scene. You were on the spot. That is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. I mean, what are the chances, Dave? That was, we were there for a reason, of course, but I believe something had to come from a higher power almost. I mean, that was just the sheer magnitude of the whole 24 hours was overwhelming in a way, but I'm so fortunate that I had I didn't do it myself. I mean, I was working with some good guys. And John Dornelis again. Wow. I mean, he was an ex-Coast Guard guy. My deckhands were great. I couldn't ask for a better galley cook. Dick Davis, I got to throw out his name because he's been on a lot of sport boats up and down the coast of California. Dick Davis, good at poker too. So Dave, that's we could do this again and again. I'm telling you that as far as this rescue goes. But you'll definitely when I'm done researching and writing whatever I have on paper, you'll get a copy.
Perfect. A lot of people are asking, Greg, how old are you right now?
I'm fooling a lot of people. I have good genes. But, 67 years old. And I
Yeah.
don't feel a day over. I don't feel a day over 22.
Oh shit. See,
Except,
he's 5 years older than I am, folks. So,
yeah,
but he looks way younger. He
I got to
looks-
give credit to my wife, Margot. If you're out there, love you, and she's one of the main reasons.
yeah,
She's not around today. She's taking care of mom and dad over on her side.
yeah, but she settled you down, boy. She
Yeah,
settled
she
you
did.
down.
Yeah. We were kind of a hard breed to kind of settle down being a sport fishing captain. Um, it's always in your blood.
And then what did you do right before you retired? You've been up there in Seattle area. Your wife's a TV fucking celebrity.
Yeah, Dave. I met my wife, Margo. I met her in Avila Beach, Port St. Louis area. She was a career news anchor, and met her down there. Matter of fact, Captain Elder, who's watching your podcast today, he dragged me along with him to San Luis Obispo one night, and we ended up at a sushi bar. And Margot was there with some friends from the news station. Jay had a friend from the news station. Crazy world. And I think maybe after a few sakis or so, a lot of sushi, I challenged Margot to a game of racquetball at the YMCA in San Luis Obispo. Long story short, we made our date. We were going to go play racquetball, but there was no power. The power went out. There was some kind of car accident. So we ended up, I asked her if she wanted to go abbing. And she goes, "What's abbing?" I go, "We're going to get some abalone. It's good love tides." So I had access to the Diablo Canyon nuclear power station. And so I brought her out there and we climbed down these cliffs and told her to wear old clothes. We went and got some abalone. And that's how I met her. What a story. And then, after Port St. Louis, Dave, my wife got a really good job offer up here in Seattle. And I was down there still working on the sport fishing boats and also a little stint with the harbor patrol. And I actually, when I was a harbor patrolman, saved the Marauder when it broke its mooring in a storm. Me and another harbor patrolman were on the pier, and so they launched me down into a rigid hull inflatable and drove me out to the Marauder as it was drifting in toward the rocks and the beach during a huge, nasty southerly. It was February, and we called it the St. Valentine's Day Massacre there because there was boats on the beach everywhere. 50-knot winds, the 8-foot swells in the harbor. But anyway, the Marauder broke loose this morning, and my friend got me out there, and I jumped on board, smashed the wheelhouse doors open, and started the engines up about 50 yards from the rocks and saved the Marauder. So there's something about the Marauder I can't get over. And, but anyway, after those days, Dave, when my wife got the job in Seattle, it was, we're only partway through. We're gonna have to continue sometime because
yeah, definitely.
I didn't end up in Seattle till my next stop. Everyone, I ended up in Monterey, California, and that's another couple stories. Monterey was great. Ran out of Kruse's Sport Fishing, ran some boats, and 5 or 6 different boats. And that fishing was a step up from the fishing we did in Morro Bay and Avila. So I've got more stories to tell about that in one of these podcasts. But Monterey was great. Introduced me to a new kind of fishing. Like I said, salmon fishing was phenomenal then. Just phenomenal. And there was, of course, you deal with the sea lions. There was 100 days in a row where I went salmon fishing, took out charters. And sometimes some of those days were I'd take out 2 charters because you get limits so quick. This was all mooching, and that's a new thing I learned. And the rockcod fishing there was was a step up from Morro Bay and Avila even. I mean, it's crazy. A new kind of rock cod. I got to see chili peppers, widow rockfish, got to fish Point Sur. There'd be rocks you have where you could fish lingcod, drop 18 rods down, and every rod bendo using live sand dabs or live squid. I mean, just more. It was what you dream about when you're a kid, all this, and I was there. I got to experience it. So I'm trying to see if anyone has any questions for me. I never answered one of those questions. We know Dave was a pinhead on your, Dave, now, so your viewers on Dave would come up to Morro Bay, and I always loved Dave. He had that same fire in him that I had when I was a youngster, but his started earlier than mine. Of course, he's a little bit younger. But once you have that desire and that fire when you're that young, and you know what you want to be, you do anything you can, and you make mistakes along the way. And Dave and I both made a few mistakes here and there, but I was there for Dave, and we had some good talks.
Oh yeah,
we had some great talks, and I encouraged him to do things that I knew he had potential for, and Dave did the same for me, even as he was a little younger. And I'll never forget that about you, Captain. You had something that a lot of people didn't, and I saw that.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't know how to take that, but I take it. And you met the whole reason why I do what I do is because of the guys that I grew up around, and I looked up to you big time, and I followed you so everywhere you went until you went to Seattle. Well, kind of Monterey. I kind of got thrown off the track, but I was really into my the darkest hours of my life back then. So that's probably why I didn't follow up on you. But then I followed up on you again when you went to Seattle, and then you were running the boat up there, and you were fishing sand dab. I remember you telling me about sand dab or sole that you were catching in the bay up there, and how you were just knocking the crap out of them, for lack of a better word. And then you went on to drive this ferry.
Yeah.
You were driving when you ended your career.
Yeah. I figured if I'm going to work, if I'm going to put in a certain amount of time at a place, you can have great memories and you can have all this and that. But I looked at the long term and looked at it like, okay, I can do something, but what am I going to have at the end? I wanted to have security financially and some health security. So I put in a really long stint at the Washington State Ferries, and so now I have that. One thing you didn't have when I was younger was you didn't really care about it. You didn't look at your financial situation when you were going to be older and stuff. So it was a kind of a good move working on the ferries. I always, in the back of my head, in the back of my mind, my heart and half my heart was still on those boats from Dana Point to Monterey all the time. They'll never leave. I mean, I'll always be there. And, I can't wait to get down to Dana Point next year and do some trips. So we'll definitely have to talk more about this, Dave.
Absolutely, Greg. We're going to definitely bring you back on here and talk more about this and the fun times that you had growing up. We just barely scratched the surface of them today. I want to thank Greg very much for being a part of my podcast today, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit about him and what he meant to me as a human being. He's one of my dearest and closest friends, and even though we're so far apart, we're still very, very tight. And I really appreciate you and all the time that you spend with me and talking to me. And thank you very much, Greg, for just a phenomenal day.
It was awesome to be here. And thank all your viewers. It was my pleasure. I loved it.
Yeah, guys, and you can ask Greg questions offline. You can go on there and ask questions and whatever. We'll talk again real soon. Thank you all very, very much for taking the time out of your busy day to watch our podcast. Tomorrow morning, we'll be live with Sam Delatorre and Daniel Rubin but Sam's got Island Tackles. He's going to be with us tomorrow morning. And Sam's got a lot of cool things to talk about. You see him on Phil Freeman's show all the time. Sam's going to be telling us about what's new in the tackle world. And Manzer Marine and McCarty Yacht Sales, thank you very much for taking care of us and making sure that we can do this show every Sunday. And Elliot, thank you for producing a hell of a show. And Greg, thank you for being on here. And we'll see you all tomorrow.